Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Travel with Terri podcast, featuring Terri Guthrie, a Dallas, Texas-based travel journalist who loves to talk about luxury family vacations, regional food and culture, national parks, historic attractions, and so much more. So welcome, everyone. Today is exciting. Literally a few hours ago, I'm going to say not even, I don't know, I don't even think you've been home that long. Terri and Ron just arrived home, basically, from Tahiti. And we are so excited about this. We're going to have a two-part series on Tahiti. Who knows, maybe longer. The next episode, we've got some wonderful interviews to share that Terri and Ron had done and recorded on site when they were in Tahiti with local experts and locals just getting their stories. So we get to learn more about Tahiti that way. But today she's going to run through her itinerary of what they both did. And we do have a segment coming up with Ron that's going to be super fun because Ron got into the fashion style of Tahiti. And I watched a wonderful Facebook and Instagram video that Terri put up of an actual fashion show. So everyone, we're getting in with the style of Tahiti and it's the islands. I mean, this is so beautiful. So everyone, take a listen. Welcome back, Terri. How's it? What's it like being away from the water? I mean, that water, the photos, I'm like, that
Yes,
would be hard to leave there.
girl, it was just incredible. I have been all over the world and I have seen a lot of gorgeous water, but I think this is my favorite for many reasons. It's called Lagoons. It's what you're seeing, that real the lighter turquoise aquamarine water. And just start out by telling you about the lagoons because I didn't understand that. I had several lagoon tours on my itinerary, and I don't know, it was not what I thought it was going to be. They were just out of this world, stunningly gorgeous. And what it is, the islands there have been formed by volcanoes. And somehow every one of those islands are circled with a barrier reef of coral. Yes. And it's like about, I don't know, not quite a mile off of the shore, but it reminded me of like a fence that just circles the island, and it keeps that water a little bit more shallow and does not have that much marine life. Not, I mean, big marine life. It kind of keeps the bigger fish out, which I love, like the giant sharks or anything that's really huge. And there are some natural openings there in the coral reef, and that's where the boats come and go. And it just is really dramatic to see because you have that just bright turquoise blue, and then you have more of the darker blue on the other side of the coral, which is the deeper area. But there are two islands there that actually have a connecting lagoon, which I'll talk about. But I never ever thought I would ever go to Tahiti, and I'm just thrilled that I got to go on this trip. It was just even more beautiful than I could have ever imagined. But French Polynesia is one of the most remote and breathtakingly beautiful regions on Earth, in my opinion. And there are 118 islands, which I
Oh my
was
gosh.
really surprised about. And they're kind of scattered across a vast area of the South Pacific. It's roughly about the size of Western Europe. Yeah. And so it just offers so much, like just an unparalleled mix of turquoise lagoons, as I talked about, these lush volcanic peaks that just often just go straight down to the water. They have such vibrant coral reefs and very authentic, rich Polynesian culture. It is truly a Polynesian paradise. And I'll have to tell you too that they refer to all of the islands, as French Polynesia, but also as Tahiti. Now, you do have one island, the largest island is Tahiti, but they refer to them also, all of them, as Tahiti, but they do have individual names as well.
Okay, so that's kind of like Hawaii with the big island being Hawaii.
Exactly. Yes. The same
Okay,
thing.
okay.
Mhm.
Very cool. But now, what was it like getting there? Because I want to get into all the good. I mean, you went snorkeling with sharks. Yes, she did that.
Yes, we did all kind of things that we have never done before, and that's something to say for us since we're old. We've been around the world a couple of times. It was really easy, and that's one of the things I wanted to really stress because I think in our heads, you think you're gonna have to take, like, 5 days and 10 different airplanes and all that kind of stuff. this is how we got there. We took an American Airlines flight from here to Los Angeles.
From
Had a
Dallas?
Sorry, from Dallas. Yeah, from Dallas to LAX. We had about a 4-hour layover, and then we got on Air Tahiti, and they have daily service, and we took that flight, which is only 8 hours. That's not bad. And we were
No.
right there at the capital at Iti, and that's the capital of Tahiti, and right there in their largest city, and that's where we started our trip.
Wow. Okay. Now, I'm supposed to be following along with your itinerary, but I'm stuck in your photos. It's just, I mean, this is amazing. And how many of the islands did you go to? Did you stay on the main one? Like, where did they take?
We
Yeah.
went Actually, we're on foot on 5 islands, and we actually stayed on 3 islands. So,
Oh,
we stayed in Tahiti, in Moorea, and, Taha'a. Yeah.
you're getting good. And I need to say this. I mean, neither of us have lived there and learned the language. So I want to just say for this episode and next episode, I'm going to say the same thing, especially we are not good at pronouncing, we don't speak French Polynesian. So please, if we make mistakes, which we probably will both do, it is not intentional.
Right,
It's,
right.
yeah.
I'm trying my best, I promise, but I'm sure I'm not doing it perfectly by any stretch.
Now you had like a guide that went with you everywhere, right? And took you around.
Well, I had uh, not really a guide that took me around. I had just had we had different guides for different activities.
Okay.
And so, yeah, and so that was a lot of fun. Our first day, I'll have to tell you, we went to the kind of a remote area of Tahiti. So let me just tell you about the island of Tahiti first. So it's like a figure 8. Just imagine like 2 circles, but the top part is much bigger. That's called Tahiti Nui, and that's where the capital is, Papeete, and that's the most populated area. And then it kind of gets real narrow, and then you would go across to Tahiti Iti. I can say that one. It's kind of fun to say. And it is very, very remote. And
Mm.
of course, developers would love to get a hold of this, but no, that's not going to happen. This land and this whole area has been in families for generations after generation, and they are very guarded about it and really, really are trying so hard to retain their culture. And so they have like what we would call like a little lake house, little beach houses. They have those, but you can only get to most of this area in Tahiti Iti by boat. And there's not too many permanent residents there, but there are a few, enough that they have a school boat, not a school bus because you don't have roads. And we saw it. It was so cute. It was a boat that actually picks up the children and take them over to Tahiti Nui, to the larger area of the island, to go to school. But that was fun to see. And even those homes that we saw, they're I don't know. It looked like they each had hundreds and hundreds of acres around them. So it's very, very, sparsely populated. Lots of people there love to go to that area and go camping. You can do some hiking there in the interior, but it's pretty intense with the volcanic peaks just going, I mean, straight down to the water, where I don't really think they could put a road there, even if they wanted to, just because of the way of the landscape and the topography is. But we did our first lagoon tour there, and that day it started out raining. It does rain there occasionally, but it didn't spoil our fun. We went ahead and started our boat tour with a little bit of rain, and sure enough, it kind of cleared up, and I'm so glad we got to take it because we saw some things there that we didn't see anywhere else. And I'll have to say, every island is very unique, has its own personality, its own special beauty. And this area of Tahiti is something special to see, and I would highly recommend it. We had a boat captain and a guide with us to show us everything. This is an
Mhm.
area where they have a lot of the blowholes where the water goes
Oh,
in and it
cool.
just like spews out. And there's even in this area something called a grotto, like a
Hmm.
cave that we could, if the water, and the tide is just right, you can go up in it, which we did in our boat, and that was fun. And then we did a little hike. There's several areas throughout the islands that have like a fresh water river that is goes out to the ocean. And so you can go from one of the lagoons up into the river, which is so unique. And it just looks kind of like a jungle or something.
Wow.
And we got up into this area and it looked very jungly, I will have to say. And she's like, okay, we're going to get out of the boat and we're going to go on a little hike. And I was like, oh my goodness, we're going to walk through the water here. And it was just, I was a little unsure about it. I'll have to tell you, because the water there in the river it does not look like the lagoon. It's a little darker and everything. But one thing they assured me about that I really appreciated and calmed my nerves a lot. They don't have anything like crocodiles, alligators, snakes. They don't have snakes. Really don't have anything there that's going to
Wow.
harm you.
And the
So
sharks. And that's the other part. When you went diving with sharks, that wasn't
they were
they
nice sharks. They're very docile. The
sharks are nice. But yeah, I
uh,
know what you mean. Yeah.
black tip sharks. They're just known to be very docile. So those are the sharks that we saw. So, of course, out in the ocean, you're going to have everything, but I'm talking around the coastline, in the rivers and stuff like that. So,
Wow.
yeah. So anyway, so we kind of hiked through this darker water to get to this area that just had the most magnificent trees. I couldn't believe it, but this tree was called a chestnut tree, and it had this root system that looked like snakes or just these ribbons. Sometimes they would be about a foot tall, but could be like 20 feet long above the ground, and just this real curvy ribbon type of flowy looking thing. It was spectacular. It looked very magical and mystical there. But we didn't go snorkeling there that day just because it was kind of rainy off and on.
Mhm.
But when we got back, it was really cool. So we go by this area. If you'll remember, in 2024, I believe, was the Paris Summer Olympics. And
Yeah.
they had the Olympics surfing competition right there in Tahiti, because it's a French territory, and I did watch it and was just I always love watching the surfing competition anyway, but I had no idea I would ever be there, and so that's really a fun place to see, and you can see the Olympic where all the athletes stayed, and it's in an area, that actual area. Now this is a unusual name, but I can say it. I am saying it this
Hmm.
correctly. It's Hupu. And there, Ron and I got our picture made by the Olympic signs, and they are known. That area is known just to have these like massive waves and surf. It's like just ideal for surfers, but not ideal for beginner surfers. You need to be more advanced. Like you don't have to
Oh,
be an
okay.
Olympian, but it's for a more experienced surfer. But it's just fun to watch that surf. It's so beautiful. They break a lot of times right along where the coral reef is, and yeah, it's pretty intense. So it was perfect for the Summer Olympics competition.
Wow. Who knew though, right? I mean, that's just amazing to be able to be part of that history. Like be able to step there and be, it's
Yes.
that's epic. So there's okay, obviously surfing, there's snorkeling, boat rides as well. Like you can go out, there's hiking. So a lot of the outdoors is there. What was the food like? Well, wait, I want to stay in the outdoors because you have just these some of these plants look like coral and it's like
Right.
plants that we want like
Oh,
in our greenhouses and in our house. Some of these are
well,
just gorgeous.
yes. I mean, I had to ask. I was like, "Is this real?" It looked like it was wax. This one thing that looks like a pine cone, but it's red and yellow. It's so lush there, and the botanicals are just very exotic, and the nature is just stunning. And I love taking pictures of florals and
Mhm.
botanical things. And I am going to be posting a reel that's going to be just that. That's how many pictures I've got. So I'm just like a fool for that kind of stuff. I just appreciate
Yeah.
beautiful flowers and floral and plants so much. This is something I've always loved, being from Mississippi originally, and my mother was quite the gardener, and she was like president of the garden club and stuff. So we always had one of those big, beautiful southern lawns with the gorgeous flower beds and stuff. And so through my mom, she's always interested me. But I just find these plants very artistic, and it's
Hmm.
really fun when you're seeing stuff that you've never seen before. And the landscape there, I'll have to mention also, it's so dramatic and it's just so spectacular that two movies that I know of have been inspired from this fantastic landscape in the Tahiti area, and that's the Disney movie Moana. If you've seen that movie, you'll get like, oh yeah, you'll make the connection. And then the other one is Avatar. And
Oh,
so both of those movies have just magnificent scenery in them. And that's where they got their ideas from, was around Tahiti. And
mm,
several of the different islands were very inspirational for them, as you can imagine. But one of the tours that I took too was the next day was more of the interior of the island. And we actually did this at every island because you kind of have two different itineraries almost. One really covers the coastal part of it and the lagoons. And then the other, the interior of the islands, were much different. And I found out that really, back hundreds of years ago, the local islanders mostly lived in the interior and they were completely self-contained right there
mhm.
because they had, the fresh water and were living off the coconut and palm trees, and they were doing just great. It was the missionaries that came over that suggested them to come down more into the coastal areas and set up communities and stuff. That's what I learned. But the interior of these islands are just fantastic. And it was so funny to see Tahiti. Now, I want to mention to you that I know a lot of people, a lot of travelers, they fly into Tahiti and then they jump on a plane and take off, and they don't actually stay in Tahiti. They go to some of the other
Oh,
islands, which I have to tell you, if you're doing that, you're missing out because you need to take, a couple of days to stay on the island of Tahiti. So our guide for our second day was Mary Jane Namoth, and she was just fantastic. I loved her so much, and all of our guides, I will have to tell you too, spoke great English, and we just really, really enjoyed them. And it's Nordhoff. I'm sorry, I mispronounced that. It's Nordhoff. And a fun connection that Mary Jane had is that her great grandfather is the author of the book Mutiny on the Bounty
wow.
and that trilogy. And he, along with James Norman Hall, wrote those. And our first stop that day was actually at James Norman Hall. He had a home there, and we got to go to the home, which is now a museum. But that's where he and Charles Nordhoff wrote those books. And so we were actually in the room. There's the typewriters, and they sat side by
Wow.
side. And, they said somebody had mentioned at some point they were almost dueling pianists. And that's how they were with, writing those books. That was our first stop. And that was really interesting. And it has a lot about some of the movies that were made back in the era, and also some military history as well. That's real interesting. But from there, we went to some water parks and nature parks. And Tahiti has some gorgeous waterfalls, these natural waterfalls that are really, really, really tall. And that's where we saw so many of the beautiful flowers. And then from there, we ended up going for lunch to Mary Jane's parents' house where she grew up. And so this is kind of on the opposite side of the island from the capital city. So we're kind of getting out almost kind of like in the countryside. We were
Mm-hmm.
seeing lots of chickens, cows, and a lot of farming communities and stuff. But they also have these beautiful coastlines, and their home is right on the beach. I'm telling
Oh
you,
man.
these people, they have some of the scenery that they, probably are just taking advantage of. They just don't even realize what they have. When we pulled up to her parents' house and walked in their backyard, I was like, my gosh. Well, one thing that they had in their backyard that I loved was just this massive tree with these giant leaves that just was the best shade tree ever. So you had the beach right there, but you had all this shade. And that's one of the things I wanted to mention also about Tahiti is that all across that island, the whole coastline of Tahiti has black sand. And of course, that's
Oh.
from the volcanic lava
Mm-hmm.
rock. Yeah, they don't have
Wow.
white beaches in Tahiti.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but
That's
all the
different.
other islands that we visited have white sand.
Yeah, this is a little different for people. And well, there are beaches like that around the world, but I mean it's interesting that there's the one with the black and then go to the white sand. just
Yeah.
around the corner kind of thing, you know?
Uh-huh.
So, oh
Yeah.
my.
And out of all the islands too, one of the other things I learned is that Tahiti is the youngest of the islands, yet it's the largest.
Oh,
So, but we're talking millions of years different.
yeah, yeah, there we go.
From a geological standpoint. Yeah. But her parents, this is something that Mary Jane does on occasion, depending on the tour that she gives. And she takes people to her parents' home just to have a real cultural immersion. So if you take the tour with Mary Jane, do the full day and get this, because this was one of the highlights of our whole trip, I have to tell you. And of course, I told you we loved her. I said I wanted to adopt her. I mean, I loved her. She's the same age as our daughters. And her parents were just lovely. And
That's cool though.
being
I
at
mean,
their
yeah,
home, yeah, and Mary Jane was like, "Yeah, that's my bedroom just right over there." But they had prepared us the nicest meal, and they eat so healthy there. It's just amazing. I just could not get over the food. I usually gain weight, honestly, when I'm on a a trip, and
yeah.
I ate very well there, and I think I lost a little weight, which is
Oh,
just
cool.
crazy because I was eating unusually healthy, a lot of raw fish. Now, I didn't know how much I was gonna eat. I actually ate a lot every day, and my stomach just liked it just fine, which I was a
Mm.
little concerned about that. But what they fixed as was, kinda known as their national dish. This is a French word, but it's called poisson cru, and it's a traditional dish that's made from raw fish, and it's marinated in fresh coconut milk and
Oh,
lime and has some vegetables in it. I can't tell you how good it is, but they're very particular about that, and you do not put that fresh coconut milk on it until you're ready to serve it. And Lisa, I could have licked the bowl. I can't tell you how good and how fresh it was. And then we had some other fresh tuna with good sauce on it, and just all this fresh fruit. Oh my goodness! And it was just delicious. And then we finished up with a fresh coconut cake with a little coconut milk drizzled over it. And then they fix a lot of like lime and lemon water there as well. And then her dad, we finished up with a rum drink that was quite good. And it was quite unusual because it was rum, some locally made Tahitian rum, and guava, like a
oh,
little guava sauce.
yeah. I
Yeah.
saw guavas and lychees. You had lychees that they're growing there too, and we
Mm-hmm.
used to have those when we lived in Kenya, in South Africa too. And some of the plants kind of remind me of certain places like that that we've been to in
Right.
the coastal areas. Some of them are similar, but yeah, man, those fruits are and they're cooling fruits. They're kind of
Yes.
like a cooling to your body fruit.
Well, they they handmade this guava sauce. I mean, I think you could use it like on bread too, but they just kind of mix it in with the rum. And she actually gave us a jar of it, which was so sweet. And they were just the sweetest
Mm.
people. As I will have to say, speaking of the locals there, they are so friendly, very warm and welcoming, and just truly joyful people. I feel like they all have a song in their heart, and they really are so welcoming with tourists and travelers. So her parents were our first people to really get to visit with, and we could not have been off to a better start with them. And as they were talking about the coconut and the coconut milk and the whole process of how much you can do with the coconut, it is amazing. And I wanted Ron, he's just going to step in here for a minute and tell you about his experience with the coconut, because
Mm.
I couldn't have done it. I mean, this is like, you've got to be strong to be wrestling a coconut because it's pretty intense. I mean, it's like physical labor, but there is so much that comes from this coconut that we learned. I have Ron here for a minute, just
All
to
right.
give us a little briefing on the coconut in
Oh,
Polynesia.
right. So, Ron, tell us about the coconut.
Hi, Lisa.
Hey, I want to know that when you wrestled the coconut, were you in your new outfit first?
Yes, I was not in my new outfit yet, but I learned that I could make a lot of my new outfit from that coconut.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it was kind of cool. The Polynesians say that you can live off of the coconut tree. And so I was like, I live off of it. And they said, oh, yeah, see the trunk? It's good wood for building. And then the palm fronds, the coconut leaves off the top, you can take those and weave them. Now you've got a roof on and walls on your house. Then you can braid them into mats, and now you have mats. And then we learned that you could take the coconut. When you tear it off the husk, you get a lot of fiber. That fiber can be woven into clothing. It can be stuffed into mats to provide, comfort. You can weave it into rope and then make rope to tie everything together with. And then you can take the coconut and eat the coconut. So you've got the coconut meat. You can squeeze it and get coconut milk and then grind the powder that's left and then use that for baking. You can get coconut oil out of the coconut. And so you can just
Wow.
literally live off the coconut. The coconut shell can become a bowl. It can become tools. It can become useful for carrying water. It's not giving up its secrets easy. That coconut, we just got a whole coconut. I did not realize they don't use them fresh off the tree. They say the preferred one's been out in the ocean for about a week and it's kind of turned brown. And so they collect those off at the beach instead of using the green ones, or they'll let one sit on the ground for a while. But there was a sharp spike there, and pound that coconut in just the right spot on that sharp spike, and then rotate it, and then do that again and again all the way around it, and you can peel the husk off of it. But when I say pound it, I mean you got to pound that rascal. It is not giving up easy. And when you finally
Wow.
get the husk off of it, now and then you've come to that hard coconut shell, and that thing is really hard to break. But with a specially shaped rock, just an ordinary rock, and knowing exactly where and how to hit it. So I located the two little eyes in the mouth. You go basically up on the forehead, turn it upright, and you hit it with a pretty good smack right in one spot, and it burst cleanly in half, perfectly in half, like two little coconut bowls. So knowing
Wow.
exactly where to hit it and exactly how to hit it really made that work out. And then you have to scrape you have the coconut water in it. So that's also useful. Excuse me. And then you have to scrape out the coconut, and that is a job. You're not breaking out pieces like you'd think, because you can't really squeeze those out or do anything with those. You can eat them, but they're hard to get out, especially with no tools. So you scrape it out, and then you take a little bit of material off the coconut bark, which looks like a fine mesh, put the ground coconut in there, and then you can squeeze that and get coconut milk, which you can also get coconut oil out of. And so it's a lot of work. It really was. It was a job. But the fact that they could just about live completely off a coconut tree, it's just such a versatile plant
Mm.
for an island where there may not be a lot of other resources.
And that oil is good like for cooking, especially if you're doing a high flame, and also really good for your skin.
Really
Massage
good.
therapists use it, and Ayurveda they use it too, coconut oil. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of their larger exports. We saw at another island when we were at Tahaa, we saw just these huge, huge, huge tables with thousands of broken up coconut that they're sunning, and they sun it for days, and then they bag it up and they take it over to Tahiti, where they then make it all into coconut oil and bottle it up and sell it. And so, yeah, it's very profitable as well.
Okay, so you got rum and you got coconut, so this is good. The food, like you're saying, so vibrant. It looks just so delicious. Did you do like a food tour at all or anything like that?
We did, but let me just tell you one more thing
Okay.
to end our time at the parents' house that was so fun is that they then had their national dancer costumes there that we got to put on.
That's
And
what we're talking about. That is Ron's outfit, and
yeah,
Terry
so
had her outfit. You guys had your outfits on, right?
that's right. And mine was just a pretty skirt and this pretty headdress. And then Ron, you can tell them about yours because it was quite interesting. We were cracking up laughing.
Well, it was kind of a grass skirt, not real long. And then around my neck, I had a giant jaw of a boar with giant tusks sticking out of it. And on my head, our guest went over to a bush, broke off some little bushy limbs off of it, them greenery, wound them into a circle, and then I had a giant plant growing out of the top of my head. And so I was, just thinking back to when I saw the movie Moana, and I was trying to do my best Moana moves out of there and be a little Polynesian, but it was
Yes, yes. We had so much fun with that, and they took lots of pictures of us, and we did a video too. I'll have to send you because they wanted us to dance, and of course I didn't know what I was doing, but I just channel my inner hula dance and started doing my little hula dance. And Ron's like chasing me around.
But isn't this part of like you really are traveling when you do this kind of thing? This is
Yes.
this is not like this, yeah, this is not the chain hotel experience or
No.
typical. This is the authentic real deal.
And one of the quotes from one of the guides, he says, "What y'all are doing is you're getting to be a traveler, not a tourist."
Yeah.
That's exactly what we were doing. We were being travelers.
Oh, that's
Yes.
awesome. That
Yes.
is
And
awesome.
just being on that black sand beach with that magnificent scenery and having some of the authentic costumes on, it was so much fun.
Mm.
That's why I said that the Nordhoff tour is just one of our favorites. It's so unique. I mean, when do you ever get to go to the tour guide's childhood home and have the parents fix a local fantastic meal for you? Oh, and I didn't tell you that our table was just sitting under that huge tree on the beach, with the Pacific Ocean right there. I told him, I said, I feel like I am in a movie. I just loved, loved, loved that. But we went back to our hotel, which I didn't mention where we were staying. We were staying right downtown. That's very urban area. It's a big city, but there's not any tall buildings anywhere in French Polynesia. I mean, there might be up to, I don't know, 4, maybe 5 stories is as high as I saw, and there's not many of those. But we stayed at a place called the Mai Tai Express, which I would have to say was just a great location and a very clean, modern hotel. And it was perfect for what we were doing because we weren't there to be, staying at a resort all day. We were wanting to do these activities that we've been talking about. And we were just 2 blocks from their big market, which was fantastic, right by the cruise boat terminal and the marina where we took a ferry over to Moorea. I'm trying to think of the names. Moorea. And so they have a ferry that runs back and forth several times a day because actually the kids in Moorea take the ferry every day to go to high school in Tahiti. And so it's a ferry boat that also has cars on it. So it's a big one. And so that's how we got to Moorea, which is known as one of the most beautiful islands. I guess it just depends. I think they're all gorgeous, but it is especially pretty, I have to say.
And you just think about it, like you want to go back? Like I don't feel like you were there long enough.
I really, I could have stayed. I mean, I feel like we just kind of, touched the tip of the iceberg, but it was, we got to see a lot. I'm telling you, after, a full week and as much as we did, we were tired. we were just like needing a day just to rest, but there's
That's
so
what
much more to
airplanes are
see.
for. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I always say, hey, I want to do everything that I can. I can always sleep later, but we were blowing and going from, sunrise till long after sunset.
And those
And,
sunsets, let's just talk about those.
oh yeah, so spectacular. Those Polynesian sunsets are epic for sure. But I loved my itinerary, and I have to say every single one of our activities and excursions, they were all exceptional. Our guides were so knowledgeable and so informative and so personable and spoke English well. And so I told him time and time again, I said, these are some of the best tours I've ever had anywhere in the world.
Oh, wow.
Every single one of them gets, 5 diamond in my book.
But wait, speaking of diamonds, you had pearls. Let's talk about, we can't leave out the pearls.
Right, right. Well, the pearls, that they have those on all islands, but where we went to the pearl farm was in Taha'a. And well, I'm getting ahead of myself. That was our last island to be at, but that was so fantastic. So I'll just go ahead and tell you about it since we're talking about it. But this is just a big outfit, really. I thought this was so interesting. This is where it all starts, is that, the lagoons we talked about, and they were not very deep, really. I mean, some of them I don't know. I don't know how deep they are, but every time I got into the lagoon, I could stand up in it, or it'd be just a little bit over my head, but not very much. But they have these like little houses that you'll see in the water that are like on stilts throughout all of French Polynesia. And that's where the actual pearl farm is. It are in these little houses. And so I think it must look just like a garden underwater. It's not what I had envisioned, which I thought, they're like swimming around looking in coral, trying to find the perfect little pearl. No, it's much more, I don't know what you call civilized or more business oriented than that. I think they have rows and rows and rows of oysters that are growing pearls for them. The place that we went to in Tahaa, they have 550,000 oysters out
Oh,
there. And so, yeah, and they're rotating them, constantly. And so we learned so much. Lisa, number one, it's very scientific, and they have it all figured out, and it's quite a process. There's just so many layers to it, and you'll just have to look it up, people, if you want to know more about it, because I couldn't possibly explain it all. I feel like you need like a PhD to explain it. But our guide there, of course, she was fantastic, and so they basically they graft pearls. They have a grafter, and he pulls the pearl out of the little pearl sac, and then he kind of measures it very quickly. He was like a machine. And then he puts it into these different little bins, like small, medium, large, extra large type of thing. And then he inserts this little bead that looks like a pearl into it. So I don't know, it's like a little surgery. I mean, they have like surgical tools and everything. And he could do one probably in 30 seconds, I would say. I can't tell you how fast he
wow.
was doing this. Yeah. Now they already have them cracked open just a little bit, but they are alive. And so when he puts his little pearl in it, then they close them back up, and then they take them back out to the ocean. They string them up on this continuous string, and then they take them back out to the ocean. But one of the most interesting things I learned, that this little bead is like this little nucleus bead that they have that looks like a pearl. It is from the Mississippi River. And I could not even believe my ears. I just like, what? Oh, wait, did they? I was like,
Yeah.
did she say Mississippi River? Because I know I'm hearing things. And so I had to ask her, I said, okay, did you say the Mississippi River? And she said, yes, the Mississippi River. The mussels in the Mississippi River somehow are very compatible. And it took them a long time to figure this out, but they're very compatible with their oysters. And so it's from those mussels that they get the materials that they need to make these little beads. And when they implant it into the oyster, then it makes its beautiful iridescent coating around it that forms the pearl. It's just incredible. And they're just beautiful. And they have a lot of workers, and some of it's like really hard, cracking open those oysters all day. Then you have the grafters, I should say. And then you have the people that are stringing the oysters onto this rope or taking them off and then taking them back out to the ocean and stringing them up there. And then you have the scuba divers that are going down and harvesting the oysters as
Wow.
well. So it was very much an eye opener. I had no idea how involved the pearl harvesting and that whole
Yeah.
business, what all it involved.
So this area too, I mean, so you went on the oyster farm, but you also went vanilla farming. I mean, that's the other thing is vanilla. Oh my gosh, really good vanilla. I mean, every time I'd go back down to Mexico, I had a friend who'd like, you better bring vanilla back. You're not allowed back in the country without that vanilla down there.
Right.
Because not
We're-
produce that great of vanilla in this country. Like it's all I can say is real vanilla is real vanilla,
Right. Well, so we're talking about the island of Taha'a, which was our
Thank
last
you.
island. So the pearl farm, the rum, and the vanilla are all in Taha'a, which
Oh, okay.
was our last stop. And Taha'a is known as the Vanilla Island. They produce
Oh.
so much there, and we had a great little educational talk there and got to see, them working and different things they were doing with the dried vanilla. And oh my goodness, it smells so good. And I wish I bought all these different little vanilla fragrances for souvenirs and stuff. I wish I could give you one, but that was a lot of fun. And then I'm trying to think, that's when our guide was showing us around. He took us all the way around the island, and we went there and then to the rum place where they make the rum right there. And, they are making their sugarcane, growing it right there on the island. They're not importing it. And this is the only organic rum in Polynesia, where we went and we did a rum tasting, and they showed us the whole process, and it was really good. I was very, very impressed with it. And then he would just pull off on the side of the road and, show us, like I was telling you about, like all those coconuts that were sunning.
Hmm.
I mean, there'd just be stuff like that, like just on the roadside. So it's just everything in French Polynesia like that. It's just so authentic. It's the real deal, and they're just it's not any kind of smoke and mirrors or anything like that. It's just like this is what it is, and here it is for everybody to see and come learn about type of thing. And then he pulled over one time, and he just goes off in the jungle there. And he comes back. I was like, "What is going on?" And that's where he gets he had just a handful of the wild hibiscus tree
Yeah,
leaves.
yeah.
And of course it's right up there with the coconut. It does so much. But yeah, of course, it produces a beautiful flower that they use a lot in their leis.
And it's related to
Mm,
cotton plant.
yes, yes. And then he showed us how they do these Tahitian ovens that are like dug down in the ground, and they weave these leaves together that and then they use that kinda as a covering, and he did a demonstration of this weaving, which I have one of those videos up on my Instagram and Facebook right now too, because, I mean, it was just nothing for him. I mean, obviously, he had done it hundreds of times, and he just weaved this most beautiful thing. I couldn't believe it. I was like, "Wow," it was so pretty. Then and that too, he said back in the day, that was actually used as toilet paper, but they have real toilet paper now, thank goodness.
I
And then
told
he
you it was related to cotton.
yeah, there you go, yeah, and then, he cuts the stalk off and then cuts some little holes in the stalk, but this was really interesting. He kinda twisted at first, and it did this little pop, 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 and this inner core thing kinda pulled out, this white thing, and then it made the stalk like almost like a bamboo. Think of that, kind of real hard and green like that. Then he
Mhm.
cut some little holes in it, and the next thing we know, we had a flute and a musical
What?
instrument. And then, Ronnie was trying to play a song, and he was getting a lot of instruction. But that's, I can't even imagine what all they can use that plant for. But that's another, native plant that they have just been resourceful with. So
So
that was
this
the
is
fun.
something for garden lovers to go to as well. People who
Oh,
love
yeah.
gardens and do. I mean, to me, gardens are always on my list and destinations because I know you're like that too. And so I think for people that love plants, this is there's more than sunning yourself on the beach is basically what I'm saying here.
Yes, uh-huh. Yeah, oh my goodness, yeah. I mean, I honestly, we never just laid out on the beach, never. There's too much to do and see for sure. But yeah, when we were in Moorea, so we were in Tahiti, we took the ferry to Moorea. It's so beautiful. It has some great areas that you can go to that have this panoramic view. You kind of climb up the mountain, and it has these magnificent views. And, we loved just yeah, that's one of my favorite scenic
Mm.
areas, I think, that we just enjoyed so much, and it was so cute. Our guide, when he picked us up, they call them like a safari tour, but you're in a big four-wheel drive truck, but the back is open, so I think technically 8 people can sit in the back, but it was just Ron and I, but it has some bars and stuff that go across it, I guess if it were to roll over or something, so, you feel secure. It has padded seats, and you have seat belts and everything, but I loved it, and there were several of these trucks that were pulled up to the ferry terminal when we got off, but ours was the prettiest because they had it I felt so special. They had it all decorated with all this greenery and these beautiful tropical leaves and flowers, and then we had some bouquets of flowers inside. I told him, I said, "I don't know who did this, but tell him thank you because no one would appreciate it more than I do." It was so pretty, and so I do have a picture of Ron and I at the back of the truck with all these gorgeous plants. I mean, it could have
Yeah,
been
it's
a
cool.
setting for, like, a backdrop for a wedding. It was that pretty, and so we had so much fun on that tour. He took us up to that top, which I think is called Belvedere Point, and then another one of our fun stops that we really enjoyed, we went to a pineapple plantation there, and that's in Moorea.
Oh,
And, yeah, that's all on the interior of the island, and they've had those pineapple farms for a long, long time. And he showed us, how to cut a pineapple. He told us how to grow. I mean, they take a long time to grow. But in the interior there, it's a lot warmer. And I have to tell you, Lisa, I have not really been out in the sun a whole lot. And I was very worried about getting sunburn because I don't have dark skin like my husband. And so I was, had a lot of the sunscreen and stuff on me. And I did not have sunscreen on my back, and I had a shirt that was kinda cut low at the pineapple place, and we were there for a while. That's the one and only time I got a little bit of sunburn. It was just across my shoulders because we were in the pineapple fields for a while. The whole rest of the time, like, when I'm out in the water and in the boats and all that kind of stuff, not once
Well,
did
you
I
know
get
what?
sunburned.
That is about sustainability and the UV and pollution, because pollution adds to how the sun affects you, I think. And you also have a lot of tropical shade and stuff like that. So I
Right,
think
right.
it's got to do with the UV thing. I mean, I think about like our time, for new listeners, myself, my mom and I, Nancy and I lived most of my life in Africa, in Kenya and South Africa. And I mean, in the bush, and it just got to the point of like just the sunscreen was just out the window. And at one point, it was like sunscreen was cancer causing. So
Yeah.
that was a weird thing. But there was a UV issue in South Africa, and we're close to Australia because it was that ozone layer thing, and that was all about pollutants. Remember we had to stop using air spray and stuff like that because of the
Yes,
ozone layer. Yeah. So places like that weren't using all those things didn't get affected maybe as much. That's just my own thing. And I think about the islands, and they are the ones getting affected more by climate change or climate crisis or global warming, what anybody wants to call it. The reality is no matter, you know, it's happening, right? And we
right.
can all yell about who, what, and where, and is this a normal thing or not? It's happening. And I think, when we look at travel and authentic travel, this is, even though you're zooming around doing all these things, getting on a ferry, going to see waterfalls, going on a boat ride on the river, snorkeling with sharks, all of that kind of stuff. There's a sustainable thing that has to happen with that. And the islands, whether it's the Polynesian islands and also the Caribbean, and I've worked with some people from the UN on this. They are the ones most affected. And we used to actually do podcasts just on islands and sustainability because they get affected more. And if you think about
Right,
it, every place is an island, every continent's an island, England's an
right.
island, right? But
Even Australia is an island.
that's a big island, it's a
Yeah.
big down under island. I mean, awesome. But we have to be really kind to our island people. What we're doing in the States affects the little islands. So what was it like there in regards to, obviously they want tourism, but they have to have that balance, right? Where we're not treating it like Disneyland and, going crazy. Like we have to be sensitive.
Right. Yeah. Well, some thoughts I have, like on the responsible travel, as they call it, is tourism in French Polynesia continues to grow. So it's something, that has been thought about a lot. And it's the responsibility falls a lot on the traveler to be sure that your activities don't harm like the environment or their local cultures. So you really have to embrace sustainable travel practices to ensure that future generations and other travelers can experience the same thing that you're experiencing and this just incredible untouched beauty of the islands. So it's really something to be thoughtful about and respectful. You just want to keep that in mind. There's special sunscreens that we use that we read about this beforehand. And so we were prepared and we took our special sunscreen that doesn't harm the coral reef or the waters and stuff like that. So something that travelers need to be very mindful and respectful of.
So we go back to the sunscreen. So, yeah, because some of that is very chemical and not so polite. So
Right,
we
right. So in Moorea, that fun tour is called Moorea Safari Tours, and the safari tours are very popular. These trucks that they have people in, so it's kind of fun to be in the back of these trucks, and they're very comfortable. Because you're out in the open. It's like being in a convertible. You're feeling the air. They do have stuff to put over it if it were to rain, but we never had any rain, and when we were doing our safari tours. because we did one at the next island too. And it's a way to, you can really see everything. It's a great way to take pictures as you're riding around, and they'll stop anytime you want to stop. But that was a lot of fun, and our guide was just fantastic. But the next day is when we got to do a food tour, and that's with Moorea Food Tour. And I loved it. Our guide was so informative, and he had started this company a few years ago, and he's just so smart and so informative and so passionate. His name is Hameta. Let me try again. Himata. And Hall is his last name. So I just wanted to call him Mr. Hall, make it easier for me. And he just gave us a great tour, which, as he explained, if you learn about the food, you learn the history and the culture of the people. And that is what we did. We learned so much. And one of the things that we learned, there are three distinct groups there. You have the native Polynesians, you have the French, and you have the Chinese. And as we learned, the Chinese were brought over a long time ago as slave labor when they were growing cotton. And then I guess their visas were up or whatever. They go to take them back to China. China refused to let them come back to their country. They had nowhere to go. So the French Polynesia was very kind and took them in. And so these huge Chinese communities started growing. And as we know, the Chinese are great cooks and are very resourceful, and that's when a lot of the vegetables were brought in, and that was really from the Chinese. Also the rice. And so you have that aspect. You have the Polynesian, just they do so much with the fruits and the fresh fish. And then the French, you've got all the yummy French stuff, especially like with pastries and the baguette bread. And you will see the baguette bread everywhere because it is actually regulated by the government, and
Oh, wow.
it is never more than 60 cents. And even in a lot of areas, they give out, free loaves of baguette bread. So they want to be sure that everyone always has something to eat. And so we love baguette bread, and it was so good. Through that has evolved into this sandwich cult, I would say. They just love these sandwiches on their baguette breads. But as he explained, it kind of just depended on what you had to put on the bread. And one kind of funny thing that has become very popular, kind of a pop culture thing, is, it sounds so funny, but we tried it and it really was good, is a chow mein sandwich. So you have all the chow mein, like the noodles, the meat,
Uh-huh.
the vegetables and everything, and it's on a sliced baguette bread sandwich. And I think that came from, somebody they just had some chow mein, they had a baguette, they made the sandwich. And anyway, the rest is history as far as that goes over there, because it's very popular. And when he told me that, I was like, ooh, I don't know if I can eat that. I'm telling you, Ron and I both loved it. So we're always willing to try
Wow.
something, because 9 times out of 10 we do like it. So that was fun. But like one night we ate at a really nice French restaurant, and I had duck and Ronnie had a rack of lamb. So they have everything over there. But the thing we ate the most of was the fresh fish,
The
and
fresh fish.
a lot of the raw fish. But I say it's raw, but when they put fresh lemon or lime on it, it actually chemically it kind of cooks it a little bit.
Well, it's
But
ceviche. Yeah, it's
yeah,
ceviche. Yeah, yeah. That's the acid that actually cooks it, which is it's
right.
the acid from
Yeah.
the lemon or the lime or, all of that cooks it, and it's still fresh. So it's actually really healthy for you. And if it's especially, you're getting it right out of the ocean. I mean, you had boat to table, man. You had
Yeah,
seed 'em
it
out.
it just does not get any fresher than that. But we enjoyed that so much, and then from there we went on another lagoon tour, and thankfully this day we had sunshine, and so that water was just wow. I mean, it was just so vibrant blue, and that was with Captain Tiana. This was fun because there's a lot of islands, like small islands, just right off the coastline of the big islands, but they're all owned by local people. And again, it's just been handed down from generation to generation. But Captain Tiana, I guess this is her family's private island, but they've built pavilions and stuff on it. And we took from the Moorea, we took just a small boat over to the private island and then had another meal. And so they were grilling stuff, and then they were showing us how to make that national dish. So we almost had like a little cooking class, the poisson crew that I had told you about earlier. And so we got to eat that there, and that was so delicious. And then we went on our first snorkeling trip,
That's
and
cool.
that was so much fun. And it started out with seeing about 25 or 30 giant sea turtles. And so we're in the lagoon. But what was unique about this snorkeling trip was that they have these big ropes behind the boat, and they give you your snorkeling equipment and everything. And you hold on to the rope and it pulls you because there's so much to see. And I guess it would just be too hard to try to swim it all, And, but they have a guide in the water that is kind of going ahead of us and finding where all the marine life is. And so that was fun. It was really kind of spoiled us because they were like, "Hey, come over here, go over there, go to the left, go to the left," and that way we saw a lot of marine life in a relatively short amount of time. And then we went over to another area of the lagoon where they have these above water bungalows, which I have to tell you that those are very famous in the South Pacific and now in other locations. And I found out that Moorea, this particular one, was the very first above water bungalow place, kind of the birthplace of that. And so we got to see those. And I always had wondered when I had seen those in pictures, I'm like, what? I don't understand, like when the tide's going up and down. But in those lagoons, it stays pretty constant and you don't have waves. That's another thing. You really don't have waves in the lagoon. So it's so perfect for snorkeling. And then right off of where the above water bungalows are, is where we went snorkeling for our second time there, with the same company. And our boat, also, I'll have to tell you, we had a glass bottom boat, which was so nice because the water's so clear. So
I love glass bottom boats. They
I
are
do
the
too.
bomb.
Saw so much, just being in the boat. But our guides, again, were so great. The girl that was the scuba diver that was with us, she's actually French, tall, blonde girl that was so sweet and so knowledgeable. And so we get over to the area where the manta rays are and the sharks. I was like, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I was like, can I do this? And, I was like, you promise they're not going to bite us and everything. They're like, we do this every day. No, it's fine. It's fine. Just relax. And so we get in the water. And I have to tell you, the manta rays, they just come up to you like puppies. They are so friendly. Now, I have to tell you, I've done that part I've done before at Grand Cayman Island, and I've done that twice. And so I knew I was kind of over my fear of the manta rays and you get to rub them and pet them, and they feel like a big portobello mushroom. That's what it reminds me of. They just don't get by their mouth, don't just be sure your fingers don't go in the mouth because they have quite the suction. I don't know what would happen, but that didn't happen. And then you don't have to worry about the little barb thing on their tail. They just do that when they're threatened. So that's not an issue. And in fact, one of them's tail, he was swimming by me and it kind of went across my stomach. And I was like, oh, okay, kind of scared me. But anyway, they love our guide. I mean, they have like a relationship. They're just like crawling on her, like up out of the water. She'd walk back over to the boat and they would just follow her. It was so funny. And all the time that we're petting and loving on the manta rays, the sharks are swimming around us. Now, you don't touch the sharks, they're not to be touched. But, and they were good size. I didn't ask her how much they weighed, but I don't know. I feel like they were like 20, 25 pounds, something like that. So they're not, they're big. They're not like, Jaws or anything.
Yeah,
They're
they're
smaller.
little.
So,
They
yeah.
look like baby
Yeah.
sharks.
Right. Yeah, they kind of do. But they were very curious and there were lots of them too. It wasn't just one or two. There was probably a dozen. And so that was a very surreal and fun experience. It was quite an adventure. So we loved that. And so that was our time in Moorea, which was so much fun. Every island was so much fun. So the next morning we take the ferry, go back to Tahiti, straight to the airport. And we used VIP transportation. They were Johnny on the spot. They were so good. They got us to our flight. So we're on a smaller airplane that's with Air Tahiti, and it kind of does the island hopping.
Oh, okay.
And Yeah, and so we leave it, and then we do a quick stop at another island, which we didn't, stay at. We just stopped there, let some people off, and then we go to the next island, which was literally, I mean, the whole thing took less than 45 minutes. We get to Raiatea, and Raiatea is very, very well known. It is the birthplace of Polynesian culture, and so this island is their spiritual epicenter, and it's where all that took place. I don't know if it was thousands of years ago. I'm not sure what the time frame is, but this is kind of like, their spiritual epicenter, and is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So
Wow.
it was very fascinating. We got to walk around there. Okay, let me back up for a minute. Before we got there, when we got off our airplane and our guide met us, he was like, "Okay, well, we've got your boat right over here." And that was just so funny to me because I had never expected to be picked up from the airport in a boat. Then there was another boat there that took our luggage and then we took it to our hotel. So we didn't have our luggage with us. So we had to run into the restroom, change into our swimsuits from our, airplane clothes. And so we go to the spiritual area, and there's so much history there, and it's a place that is very reverent to the Polynesian people and very sacred. And then we also went downtown Raiatea, and I was surprised to learn that this is a big cruise boat terminal, and they have 400 cruise boats a year that go to
Oh,
Raiatea
wow.
as they're making the rounds through the Tahitian islands. I'm not sure how many stops the cruise boats do. I guess it just depends. Of course, Tahiti is one of them. But anyway, their little downtown area is really nice, and we enjoyed that. And the cruise boat terminal is super nice. But our guide was so good, and this was with Van Voss Adventures Excursions. We had a really nice pontoon boat, and our guide was just fantastic and very knowledgeable. And when there again, I felt like I was in a movie set again because when they picked us up in the boat and we were pulling out, he pulls out his ukulele and starts singing to us. And he sang a lot of songs for us. He's very, very talented, very good. And so that was just kind of like icing on the cake, having that beautiful music. It was just so surreal. But another thing that we did there is that we got to travel up a river. And this was, I told you we did that at Tahiti, but we didn't go like you couldn't go too far up that river in a boat. This one you could go a long ways, and it was like I felt like we were like in the Amazon or something. I mean, it was so different from everything else and so pretty. And there are people that still live. They call them river people, I think, that live way back up in there in the river and have a very, very simple way of life. We got to see some of the kids just swimming in the river banks and just right off the river banks, and some of 'em, they had tables like selling fruit and stuff. But that was all very interesting to see. And then we went to a private island again. No, I take that back. This was not a private island. This was like a public park that was on
Okay.
one of the little islands. And there again, they had this like just this gourmet meal prepared, and they're very spiritual people.
Mhm.
A lot of lots of churches over there, a lot of Protestants and Mormons. But our guide, he was so funny. He was like, "Do you mind if I bless the food?" And of course, we did not mind, and I thought that was very sweet. And then as we're eating our delicious meal with Raiatea on one side of us and Tahaa on the other side of us and Bora Bora in the background there, he's playing the ukulele. Do you see why I felt like I was in a movie?
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's amazing.
I know. And then Ron and I went swimming there, and from there we just scoot across the water to our hotel. But it's Raiatea and Taha'a that have a connecting lagoon, which is so fantastic. So I just found that super interesting. So I mean, the lagoon completely circles both islands, and then and then it connects. Isn't that something? And I've never been taken to a hotel by boat, but that's what we did. And this
Wow.
hotel, Anahata is the name of this. This is a Tahitian guest house. And so this is something I wanted to tell people about so that they are aware that they have a lot of these throughout all the islands in Tahiti. And these are locally owned and operated guest houses. And the people who own them like live on site, and they're like little bungalows, right? And you can stay in them like either like on the beach, right there on the ocean, or the lagoon, or some of them. I have a friend here in Texas that was just there, and she stayed. Kind of hers was more up in the mountains, but it's probably a more authentic experience staying in these than being at the big fancy luxurious resorts, which are nice, but they're kind of that type of resort is kind of the same thing all over the world. If you want to do something different and probably a lot less expensive, and also you're probably going to have a lot more room. Like our houses, our bungalows we stayed in were really spacious. We had a kitchen, we had a little upstairs area. I mean, they were nice, so nice. And
Cool.
they provide breakfast, and a lot of them provide dinner as well. At here at Anahata, we had breakfast every morning at 7:30, and dinner was served at 7:30 every night. And they had you would just go up to their main reception area, which was up the hill, because I told you those mountains come down pretty close to the coastline. It was a little hike up there, but it was good exercise. We needed that. And since they have a set time, all the other guests would be there too at the same time. So you got to meet a lot of different people. And so we sat at our table with two couples that we really enjoyed. One was from Switzerland, and the other was from California, and part-time Hawaii. So we enjoyed getting to know them as well. And that is where we had our fashion show. Yeah, which was so much fun. That was a very spontaneous thing. I just put on my pario, which is a sarong.
Mhm.
I put it on that morning real quickly. This was the day that we were leaving, and actually, as I was walking up the mountain, I should say, for breakfast, I thought, what would be a fun little reel, a little video to do is to talk about the flower, their national flower that I had in my hair. And you always wonder, like, what side are you supposed to put it on? So I thought I would, do a little quick video that talked about, if you have it on the right, it means that you are available. You're single, you're available. If you have it on the left, it means, I'm not available. My heart is taken. And I was thinking about doing that. And as I was eating breakfast, I noticed some of the wait staff and workers there, they had some of these parios on. And I thought, you know what? It would be fun to do a little fashion show. I'm always up for a fashion show. And so I talked to them and I asked them if they wanted to do it. And everybody, all the locals told me later, they're like, I can't believe you got them to do that, because the Polynesians in general are kind of shy about stuff like that. I don't feel like they were. I think they were really excited. And the girls and the guy that did it, they were just beautiful. And they showed basically different styles and things that you can do with the pario, the sarong. And so to give people a general idea. So that was fun. And they had the fresh flowers in their hair and everything. So we loved that. But we ended that trip with our lagoon tour of Tahaa. And Taha'a, I have to tell you, it doesn't have an airport. I mean, you get to and from that island by boat, and it's only 15 minutes to Raiatea, where the airport is. So it's really a quick little drive in the boat. And we had another fun, safari tour, which was it's called Taha'a Safari Adventures. And then our last thing we did was that lagoon tour.
Mm.
And it's with the Taha'a Lodge and Excursions. And our guide was so good. Now we went to another private island, and he had prepared this amazing meal. Again, all of our meal picnics and stuff, I'm not kidding you. They had like probably 7 different things to eat. We're all just delicious. And this island, if you see some of my pictures with all these massive swaying palm trees and stuff, that's from that area. After our lunch, we went and snorkeled again. This time, we did 2 different stops. Our first one was just going over the coral reefs, just swimming over and around the coral reefs. And we saw so much marine life, just these beautiful, colorful fish that it was so pretty. I mean, it's just crystal clear. It's just so amazing how clear and perfect the water is. And then from there, we did one more stop. He took us over to the shark area. And so we got to swim and see the sharks again. And once again, they were very docile and nice, thank goodness. And
Oh.
then we sat there on the boat and watched a beautiful Polynesian sunset. And that was our last full day. And it was dreamy. It was absolutely dreamy.
Awesome. Well, everyone, we're going to be back with the next episode where you can hear from people that Terri and Ron met, and we can follow up with some more because obviously there's a lot that you packed in. I mean, yeah, this is pretty epic. So definitely a bucket list destination and one to, and like you're saying, and when you go to Tahiti, actually stay there and explore
Yes.
the big island of Tahiti, you know. So much there. Everyone, the website that you can go to learn more and plan your trip is TahitiTourismE.com. And the link is in the episode as always. So check out the episode links for that. And you'll see everywhere that Terri is talking about that her and Ron experienced. So Terri, awesome stuff. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lisa. And I just want people to know that there are just so many different types of itineraries really that you can do there, or it's just something that of course is great for a romantic escape or like a scuba diving adventure. If you just want to do cultural explorations, a solo trip, you'll be great on a solo trip, but also you have the luxury travel there, definitely, but you also have budget friendly options as well. So anybody can go to Tahiti. So don't think that you can't, because it's a lot easier to get there and it's a lot less expensive than you would imagine.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, everyone, happy travel planning. Go to Tahiti.
Yes, absolutely. Go. Run.
Thanks for joining us here on Big Blend Radio's Travel with Terri podcast. You can follow Terri's adventures at travelwithterri.net, and that's Terri with an I, not a Y. Follow us here at bigblendradio.com. Happy travels!